The crystal glass shattered first. Then came the laughter. Ethan froze, red wine soaking the white tablecloth like blood, his face burning hotter than the restaurant's fancy candles. Across from him, Amelia, the elegant woman set up by his business partner, stared at his trembling, scarred leg he'd accidentally knocked against the table. Clumsy peg leg. A man at the next table snorted, loud enough for everyone to hear. In that instant, the CEO of Thunder Auto Group, owner of five-star restaurants and downtown bars, vanished. He was just the broken-legged boy from the muddy roads again. At age 7, a rusty car part fell on his leg while he played near his grandma's shack. A bad village treatment made the wound rot. Doctors saved his life, but not his leg. He got a cheap, clunky wooden one. After his parents died, only Grandma Ruth loved him. By age 12, Ethan quit school. Grandma was sick. He stood on the dangerous, muddy highway edge near their shack, rain or sun, waving down broken trucks. He'd crawl under engines, his small hands covered in grease, fixing them for just enough coins to buy bread and Grandma's medicine. His world was oil-stained rags, rusty tools, empty stomachs, and Grandma's weak smile. They called him Peg-Leg Pete, or Stumpy. Girls pointed and giggled when his wooden leg slipped in the mud. He learned to hide, behind broken cars, in ditches, anywhere to avoid their eyes. Talking felt impossible. The shame choked him. When Ethan was 18, a sleek, expensive SUV spluttered to a halt near his spot. Soaked and shivering, he fixed its complex engine in the dark mud. The driver? A stunned auto industry CEO. Impressed by Ethan's genius, he didn't just pay. He gave Ethan a job and mentorship. Ethan learned fast. He saved every penny. Started a tiny garage, then a bigger one, then a dealership. 10 years later, Thunder Auto Group roared onto the national scene. He built luxury car showrooms, bought the fancy restaurants he once stared at hungrily, and never forgot Grandma Ruth. He built a clinic in her name. But money couldn't buy new nerves or erase old scars. The fear planted when kids yelled, "Peg leg," never left. Dates were nightmares. He'd panic, spill things, knock chairs, like tonight. The world saw a powerful CEO. Inside, Ethan still felt like the one-legged boy hiding from laughter in the oily shadows beneath a truck. Terrified the world would see he was broken. For years, Ethan's friends set him up on dates. "She's perfect for you, boss," they'd insist. But every time, it ended the same. Polished smiles fading the moment they glimpsed his prosthetic leg. Whispered excuses, ghosted calls. "Nobody wants a man missing pieces," Ethan would think bitterly, locking himself back in his penthouse. His friends teased him mercilessly. "Still a virgin at 38? Even your money can't fix that wooden leg wonder." Until he stopped trying altogether. Being near a woman felt like stepping onto thin ice. He'd freeze, words dying in his throat, terrified of the pity or disgust in their eyes. Then, one rainy Tuesday night, scrolling listlessly before deleting Heartlink for the 10th time, her profile appeared. Ivory. Not just beautiful, radiant. Warm eyes, a thoughtful smile, no filters. Something reckless sparked in him. He typed a simple, "Hello." They met at a quiet riverside cafe. Ethan arrived early, palms sweating, rehearsing escape routes. When Ivory walked in, graceful in a simple blue dress, his heart hammered. Here it comes, he braced himself, the glance down, the faltering smile, the awkward exit. But Ivory simply slid into the seat opposite him. "Ethan, it's lovely to finally meet you," she said, her voice calm as morning light. No flinching, no searching his body, no rushed questions about his fleet of jets. She spoke of her work teaching deaf children, asked thoughtful questions about his passions, not just his empire, and listened like his words were treasures. When his cane clattered against the table leg, she didn't stare, just gently steadied his water glass. No games, no greed, just quiet, intelligent warmth. For the first time in decades, Ethan didn't feel like a damaged spectacle. He felt seen. As they parted, promising to meet again, Ethan stood straighter. The ice inside him didn't just crack, it began to melt. Ivory hadn't just walked into the cafe, she'd walked into the fortress around his heart and left the door ajar. Ethan drove home after his first date with Ivory, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Please let her text, please don't vanish like the others. He'd barely parked when his phone glowed. Ivory. Tonight was lovely. When can I see you again? Relief flooded him like monsoon rain. They talked daily, met for sunset walks by the lagoon, shared quiet dinners at hidden gems downtown. Ivory listened, truly listened, when he spoke of his grandmother's shack, the oily highway, the leg he lost. She never flinched, never glanced at her watch, never asked about his net worth. For the first time, Ethan understood his late Grandma Ruth's advice. A pretty face fades, Omomi, but a good heart, that's forever. Ivory had both. 6 months in, Ethan's friends nudged him. She's a jewel, Ethan. Don't wait. He didn't. He commissioned a ring, platinum, with a diamond like captured starlight, because Ivory embodied luxury, not in vanity, but in grace. He proposed at dawn on Tarqua Bay, sand cool under their feet, waves painting the sky gold. Ivory's yes was a sob against his chest. News sites splashed headlines. Auto King weds his queen. Weeks later, he brought her to Grandma Ruth's village home. Ivory stepped out of the Range Rover in a simple linen dress, knelt to greet the old woman in flawless Yoruba. E Cabo, Mama Ruth. She brought baskets of fresh garden eggs and bitter leaf, helped pound yam, stirred the Ifo Riro pot, laughter bright as wind chimes. Ethan beamed. Perfect, she's perfect. But Grandma Ruth watched, silent, eyes sharp as broken bottle glass. That night, as fireflies dotted the compound, Grandma Ruth gripped Ethan's wrist. Her fingers felt like roots. Follow me, she rasped, pulling him behind the guava trees. The moon lit the worry trenches on her face. That woman. She paused, choosing words like stones. Her smile doesn't reach her spirit. I see it. Her hands help, but her eyes calculate. Ethan's chest tightened. Grandma, hear me. Her whisper cut like a blade. A cobra wears the prettiest colors. Tread softly, Omomi, or her poison will find you. Ethan smoothed his tuxedo lapel, phone pressed to his ear. Ivory? The photographer's waiting, love. Silence. Her bridal sweet line rang unanswered. Odd. He called her mother. But she left hours ago, Okomi, with her gown. Panic, cold and slick, coiled in his stomach. Ivory's best friend hadn't seen her. Her stylist swore she'd texted. With forced calm, Ethan drove to the luxury condo he'd bought her, ivy crawling over marble balconies, her pearl-white Bentley parked beside a sleek, unfamiliar Jaguar. He knocked. Called. Silence. Around back, her bedroom window stood slightly open. Silk curtains fluttered. And then, he saw. Ivory stood before a gilded mirror, fastening diamond earrings he'd given her, wearing only a lace slip. Behind her, a shirtless man, tall, tattooed, zipped his jeans. Hurry up, Steve. Ivory sighed, slicking red gloss over lips that had kissed Ethan hours earlier. This pre-wedding shoot's a chore. Steve smirked, tracing her spine. Play the blushing bride a little longer. We need that final transfer. She turned, eyes sharp as broken glass. Please, that limp, that pathetic grateful smile. Every touch feels like charity. He's a means, Steve. Our ticket to Mauritius, to freedom. She laughed, a sound like cracking ice. 4 more days pretending I want him, then poof. Mrs. Thunder Auto Group. By year's end, half his empire's ours. You'll never fix bikes in that grimy garage again. Ethan's hand flew to his mouth. Steve. The name punched through him. Steve Balogan, Ivory's ex. The mechanic who'd once beaten her bloody outside a nightclub. The man she'd wept to Ethan about. Tears blurred the window. Ivory's cruel mimicry of his smile, the one he'd thought was joy, echoed in his skull. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Above him, their laughter tangled like vipers. Below, the Bentley's hood glinted under the sun, a tombstone for trust. Ethan's legs felt like stone as he stumbled to his car. The image of Ivory and Steve burned behind his eyelids. Instead of tears, a cold numbness spread through him. He drove not to the photo shoot, but home. Inside his study, the air hummed with finality. He called his lawyer, Barrister Adekunle. "Transfer everything," Ethan stated, voice eerily calm. "All holdings, Thunder Auto Group shares, restaurant chains, the Victoria Island estates, liquid assets. Put it all under Grandma Ruth's name, effective immediately." Barrister Adekunle choked. "Sir, the wedding is in 4 days. This will take. Freeze my accounts, dissolve shell companies, make me legally penniless by sunset." A pause. "Or find a new client." Documents flew, digital signatures flared across screens. By dusk, Ethan's empire belonged to a frail woman in a village compound. He owned nothing but the tuxedo on his back. Ivory arrived breathless, radiating practiced remorse. Her ivory lace gown glowed. "Darling, forgive me. The florist insisted on redoing my bouquet." Ethan cut her off with a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Just glad you're here." He offered his arm. His limp felt heavier, deliberate. As cameras flashed against the lagoon backdrop, Ivory clung to him, fingers digging possessively into his bicep. She tilted her face for candid kisses, laughing too brightly. Ethan mirrored her, a flawless pantomime. The doting groom, his gaze empty as polished marble. St. Andrew's Cathedral glittered. Orchids dripped from every arch. Society pages would call it the union of the decade. Ivory processed down the aisle, a vision in French silk, her smile radiant. Victory. Ethan waited at the altar, posture rigid. His custom tuxedo hid the tremor in his hands. Vengeance. They exchanged vows. Her "I do" was a velvet purr laden with future bank transfers. His "I do" was a hammer striking an anvil. The priest pronounced them. They kissed, a brief cold press of lips. Applause erupted. Ivory beamed, waving at A-list guests, sipping Dom Perignon. Ethan scanned the crowd, his expression unreadable. No one saw. The way his thumb brushed Grandma Ruth's simple coral bracelet beneath his cuff, his only remaining asset. The flicker in his eyes as he watched Ivory accept congratulations, already mentally spending his, now grandma's, billions. The steel trap of his mind, counting down. Grandma Ruth's voice crackled through the phone at dawn, thick with confusion. "Ethan? Men in suits are here. They say I own mansions in Ikoyi and car factories. What kind of trouble have you brought to my thatched roof, Omo me?" He drove straight to her village compound, the scent of burning firewood and ripe plantains heavy in the air. Kneeling on the packed earth floor of her hut, he laid bare Ivory's betrayal. The pre-wedding scene with Steve, her mocking imitation of his limp, the cold calculation in her voice as she called him her escape route from poverty, her plan to drain him and return to her abusive lover. Grandma Ruth clutched her faded wrapper, her eyes stormy. "Did I not warn you? That Ivory's sweetness was palm wine left too long in the sun, turned to vinegar. Why march into that church like a goat to slaughter?" Ethan's jaw tightened. To make the trap snap shut on her fingers, Iyami. She wanted a billionaire's life. I let her marry a man stripped bare. Everything, the auto group, the restaurants, the offshore accounts, bears your name now. All I own fits in a backpack. A slow, fierce pride warmed Grandma Ruth's weathered face. She pulled him close, her grip strong as Iroko roots. "Ah, my sharp knife hidden in soft velvet. You let her grasp only smoke." Weeks bled into months, and Ivory's honeyed warmth hardened into glacial indifference. Ethan's confession of financial ruin, bad investments, everything gone. Mama Ruth controls it all now, was met not with concern, but a sneer curling her perfect lips. Useless man, she'd hiss, turning away to text on her diamond-crusted phone. Her demands turned venomous. Sell that ugly watch. Borrow from your grandmother. Must I starve because you're a failure? She'd forget to cook, leaving him scavenging crackers in their silent, sterile kitchen while she dined out, returning with Steve's musky cologne clinging to her silk blouses. Steve's whispers grew urgent through thin walls. Hurry, Ivory! Drain him dry before the banks sniff it out. We need that money. Trapped between Steve's greed and Ethan's apparent poverty, Ivory saw only one escape hatch: divorce. The court will rip his books open, she told Steve, painting her nails blood red. Half of Thunder Auto is mine by law, then we vanish. Ethan, hollow-eyed but clinging to delusion, begged outside her locked dressing room. Ivory, please. Remember sunset walks? I love you. We can rebuild. Her laughter was shattering glass. Rebuild what? Your limp and empty pockets? Save your breath, beggar. Divorce court number 7 smelled of cheap polish and cheaper ambition. Ivory swept in, a panther in Prada, flanked by sharks in suits. Steve lurked in the back row, eyes gleaming like a gambler's. Ethan sat alone, a worn leather folder on his lap. Petitioner demands 50% of respondents' assets, Ivory's lawyer declared, slapping a list of Ethan's former empire onto the bench, including Thunder Auto Group, Victoria Island Holdings, and liquid funds. The judge peered at Ethan. Response? Ethan's lawyer rose, opening the single folder. My client possesses 0 assets, Your Honor. All properties, businesses, and investments were irrevocably transferred to Ruth Adebayo, his grandmother, 8 months ago, predating this marriage by 3 weeks. Legally, Mr. Adebayo owns nothing but personal effects and a monthly stipend of 200,000 naira. His current account holds 82,340 naira. He slid bank statements and notarized deeds toward the bench. We propose dividing the 82,340 naira. Mrs. Adebayo may have 41,170 naira. Ivory didn't scream. She made a small, wet gasp, like a fish yanked from water. Her Prada-clad knees buckled. She collapsed sideways, cracking her head on the oak bench, a streak of blood blooming on her temple like a cursed rose. Steve didn't move. His jaw hung slack, eyes wide as saucers, the greed in them snuffed out by pure, cold terror. His ticket to paradise just evaporated. Ethan stood slowly, his limp echoing in the stunned silence. He didn't look at Ivory's crumpled form or Steve's frozen shock. He walked past the bailiffs rushing toward her, past the chaos, out into the indifferent sunlight. Grandma Ruth's rusty Peugeot idled at the curb. As he slid in, she handed him a warm moin leaf. It ends today, Omo mi, she said softly. It ended, Ethan replied, the moment she chose gold over grace. The fluorescent lights of the hospital room buzzed like angry wasps. Ivory's eyelids fluttered open, pain pulsing behind her temples. Bandages clung to her skin, sticky with dried blood and antiseptic. She fumbled for her phone, cracked screen, dead battery. Panic clawed up her throat. Where is everyone? The chair beside her bed sat empty. No Steve, no bouquet of sympathy flowers, just the relentless beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor mocking her isolation. She rang the nurse. My friends, has anyone asked for me? The nurse avoided her eyes. No, madam, just the bill settlement reminder. When discharged, she limped to Steve's apartment, the one she'd paid 6 months' rent for. A stranger answered. Balogan? Gone. Moved to Ghana, they say. Left no forwarding address. The sidewalk tilted. She gripped a lamppost, hot tears mixing with Lagos's diesel-soaked air. Her phone finally charged. 36 missed calls to Steve, all unanswered. Her glamorous friends' numbers rang into voids. Click, 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 alone, broke, unseen. Her reflection in a shop window showed a ghost, hollow cheeks, hospital bracelet still dangling. The woman who wore Prada now clutched a nylon bag holding all she owned. A toothbrush, 2 dresses, and the shattered remains of her greed. Ethan sat in his black G-Wagon, engine idling outside the club. Rain streaked the windshield like tears. "Last bus stop," he whispered to the fogged glass. Love felt like a myth written for other men. Men with whole bodies, whole hearts. Ivory's betrayal hadn't just broken him, it had erased the map to his own soul. He drove home slowly, the city's neon lights bleeding into the wet asphalt. The homeless woman emerged from the shadows like a wraith, skeletal, draped in sodden rags, crossing Ozumba Mbadiwe Avenue. Ethan slammed the brakes, thud, not loud, dull, final. He stumbled out, rain soaking his Brioni suit. She lay crumpled, one thin arm twisted beneath her. "God, no!" At the hospital, doctors moved with calm urgency. "Multiple fractures, severe malnutrition, no internal bleeding, miraculous, really." The doctor eyed Ethan's gold Rolex. "She needs weeks of rest, decent food, shelter." The woman, Susan, stirred, her eyes, large and doe-like in her gaunt face, locked onto his. "I have nowhere," she rasped. Ethan's Ikoyi mansion felt cavernous, echoing with ghosts. He led Susan to the guest suite, cream linen, ensuite marble bath. "Stay a week, rest, that's non-negotiable." But Susan defied him quietly. By 5 a.m., the aroma of freshly ground ogi porridge, infused with ginger and coconut milk, woke him. He found her scrubbing kitchen tiles, sweat beading her brow despite the AC's hum. "You shouldn't, please," she interrupted softly, wringing a cloth over a bucket. "Let me do this. You didn't run. You brought me here. This," she gestured at the spotless counter, "is my thanks." Her eyes held no guile, only survival's stark grace. On the 7th morning, she stood at his study door, twisting her hands. "The streets," her voice trembled, "they're not kind to women alone. A job? Any job. I'll tend the garden, scrub floors. Just don't send me back." A tear traced the scar on her cheekbone. Ethan saw Ivory's sneer superimposed over Susan's raw vulnerability. "Stay," he said gruffly, as housekeeper. 3 weeks later, Ethan returned early from Abuja. The house lay silent, too silent. He found her in the library, curled in the wing-back chair he never used. Moonlight silvered the pages of Michael Porter's Competitive Advantage. Her finger moved beneath lines of text, lips shaping silent words. "Susan?" She jolted upright, snapping the book shut. "Sir, I'm sorry, I found it on the shelf, I couldn't resist." Ethan stepped closer. "You read Porter?" Yes. Explain the 5 forces framework. A test, a dare." She didn't hesitate. Threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, buyers, substitute threats, industry rivalry. Her gaze sharpened, but Porter underestimated regulatory capture in emerging markets. Here, the government is a 6th force. Ethan stared. "Where did you study?" "Business administration. UNILAG. MBA, actually." "And you're cleaning my house?" A wry smile touched her lips. "Degrees don't stop landlords from locking doors, sir, or husbands from stealing tuition funds." He sat opposite her. "Tell me about Lagos's logistics sector." 2 hours later, the moon had climbed high. Susan spoke of bonded warehouses, port congestion bribes, last-mile delivery startups, her voice low, fierce, alive. Ethan forgot his limp, forgot Ivory. Here, in the ruins of his cynicism, bloomed a woman who saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be. Weeks bled into months. Susan's strategic mind became Ethan's secret weapon. When her analysis of a rival's weakness secured a 4.8 billion naira refinery contract, Ethan summoned her to his office at dusk. "You just made Thunder Auto unstoppable," he said, sliding a new contract across the desk. "Join us, officially, as head of corporate strategy." Susan's breath hitched. "Ethan, are you sure?" "Never sure." He introduced her Monday morning. "Meet Susan Chukwu. Her genius just funded your bonuses." The staff gaped, rumors ignited like bushfire. "He's sleeping with the help. Clever maids, now clever mistress." Susan ignored them, burying herself in work. But Ethan saw how she flinched when hands brushed hers in the elevator. A victory party at Eclipse Lounge. Too much champagne, too little restraint. Ethan pulled Susan onto the dance floor, her laughter loose, his guard down. They stumbled into his penthouse at 3 a.m., tangled in each other's breath. Morning shattered the illusion. Susan woke in his bed, Ethan's arm draped over her waist. She froze, then bolted to the guest wing. For days she vanished before breakfast, left reports on his desk without eye contact. Ethan cornered her in the garage. "Susan, talk to me." That night, I crossed a line. "I'm sorry." She hugged her laptop like armor. "It was the alcohol. Let's forget it." "I can't." 1 week later, she wheeled a suitcase into his study. "I've rented a flat in Yaba. My salary covers it." Ethan's heart lurched. "Don't go." "I have to. This ambiguity, it's breaking me." He blocked the door. "Stay. Because I'm terrified of coming home to silence. Because you're the first real thing in this house since Grandma Ruth's prayers." His voice cracked. "Because I love you, Susan." She went utterly still. "Love?" "Ethan, look at me. I'm a woman who slept under bridges. You're a king. How could I ever be enough?" He gripped her shoulders gently. "You think scars disqualify you? Mine are just better hidden." They sat on the floor, backs against the mahogany desk. Her truth came first. "Fresh out of Unilag, I got a CFO role at Brilliant Logistics. My mentor, my fiancé, framed me. Transferred 280 million naira offshore, forged my signature. I woke to EFCC battering down my door." She traced the scar on her wrist. "Spent 11 months in Kirikiri. Sold my degree certificates, my mother's land, everything, to repay what I didn't steal. Walked out with 5,000 naira in a plastic bag. That's how Susan Chukwu became a homeless ghost." Then his, "I loved Ivory like oxygen. Gave her everything, everything. Heard her laugh at my limp with her lover days before our wedding. Transferred my empire to Grandma Ruth while she picked her bouquet. The woman who called me king thought I was a cockroach." Moonlight pooled through the blinds. Susan touched his prosthetic leg, not with pity, but recognition. "They broke you too," she whispered. "Broke me open," he corrected softly, "so I'd recognize light when it finally walked in." Her tears fell then, not from shame, from being seen. He kissed her forehead. "Stay, not as my strategist, as my sanctuary." Susan leaned into him, her suitcase forgotten in the shadows. "Always." Without a word, Ethan pulled Susan close. They held each other in the dim study, two souls cracked by betrayal, now sealing their fractures with gold. That weekend, Ethan took Susan to the village. Grandma Ruth studied her for hours, silent, sharp-eyed, as Susan peeled yams and stirred egusi soup without being asked. Suddenly, the old woman slammed her palm on the table. "This one!" Her voice rang like a bell. "Her spirit is clean, no demons hiding behind smiles. Omo mi, kneel!" Susan knelt in the dust. Grandma Ruth pressed coconut oil onto her forehead, praying in Igbo, "Chi ekeneya." "Protect this daughter. Let her womb hold life. Let her joy be full." They married quietly at St. Mary's, rain lashing the windows. No lace, no photographers, only Grandma Ruth, Mama Adami, who hugged Susan fiercely, and a tired priest who sighed, "Fastest wedding I've done, but love doesn't need pomp, Abi." 2 months later, Susan gripped a pregnancy test, trembling. "We're having a baby," she whispered. Ethan's shout of joy died when he saw her tears. "My mother, my grandmother, all died birthing their first child, bleeding out, leaving babies motherless." She touched her belly. "This curse runs in my blood." Ethan drove straight to Grandma Ruth's hut. That night, the old woman gathered 12 prayer warriors. They circled Susan, laying hands on her belly, anointing her with olive oil. "By the blood of Jesus," Grandma Ruth commanded, "this cradle will not become a coffin. Susan, go hold her baby and dance." Labor came on a stormy Thursday. For 16 hours, Susan fought, Ethan holding her hand, Grandma Ruth praying psalms into her ear. At dawn, a cry pierced the room. The midwife placed him in Susan's arms, a boy with Ethan's strong jaw and Susan's intelligent eyes. "He's perfect," Ethan sobbed, kissing Susan's sweaty forehead. "You're both here. The curse is broken." Outside, the prayer warriors ululated as rainbows split the sky. This is how love wins, not in glittering palaces, but in scars trusted to another's hands. Not in easy promises, but in battles fought back to back. Ethan, the boy called Half-One, who built empires to outrun his limp, found wholeness when Susan touched his prosthetic and whispered, "They broke you too." Susan, the CEO discarded like trash, found her worth when Ethan said, "Stay, be my sanctuary." Their love wasn't a fairy tale. It was a ceasefire, a pact between two wounded warriors to sheathe their swords and build a home in the ruins. And when their son opened his eyes, eyes that held Ethan's hope and Susan's fire, they knew the strongest foundations are forged in brokenness, blessed by grandmas, and sealed with tears. Ethan Jr.'s first birthday filled Grandma Ruth's compound with laughter. Susan danced, her scar now a badge of survival. Ethan swung his son onto his shoulders, no limp visible in his joy. Mama Adami pulled Susan aside, pressing a tiny coral bracelet into her hand. "Wear it. For every child you bear, it go hold them safe." As palm wine flowed, Ethan whispered to Susan, "Remember the homeless woman I found? Best accident of my life." She smiled. "Funny, I remember a man who didn't run." The end. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. Real love isn't found, it's forged. What did you think? Share below.